Creed 2 is in theaters now, but is it more of a Rocky 5? We'll tell you right here on Screen Junkies News. Hello, I'm Dan Murrell.
And I'm Roth Cornet, and it's not a Rocky 5.
It is not a Rocky 5,
Yeah.
but
It was a fun
I had
pun,
to say
though.
something.
I
Yes,
like
exactly.
the pun. I thought you were going to do, but did it knock our socks off?
Oh, that's a good one.
Overall, what were your expectations going in, and how did you feel about it?
I try not to bring expectations into a movie with me. I certainly was not... I really, really liked the first film, and I think it's very unfair to go into a sequel expecting it to be as good as a great film. A lot of people kind of get hamstrung by that in the sense that they will accept nothing but a movie as good as the first one. I did not think this was as good as the first movie, the Creed. However, I still enjoyed it. I thought that this one was a little closer to the Rocky formula that I think Creed sort of broke out of and excelled beyond. I thought this one was very much more of just a solid movie that you would expect from this franchise. But I liked it. I liked where it ended up. I really liked the character work that was done, especially particularly where they took them ultimately by the end of the film. And so I liked this. I liked this movie. I enjoyed it.
I liked it quite a bit, and I agree with you. Creed was sort of, first of all, Ryan Coogler, who is one of our finest working directors today, directed Creed, and he did not direct this film, but he did handpick the director, Stephen Cable Jr., I believe, and he worked with him, and he worked as producer. However, he's a very busy guy at this point.
Yes.
And he was certainly busy during the production. That said, I thought with this movie, you're right. What Creed was doing was it understood the tropes of kind of a Rocky movie well enough to play with them and work against them and deliver something new. And that was so refreshing, and it was so unexpected in a sense that now we've come into this expecting that. We're expecting a much more human story. We're expecting depth to this. So now if you deliver that, we're not quite as impressed, first of all. And then structurally, to your point, this movie, here's why I'm both impressed and surprised. This movie structurally really mirrors, in certain respects, Rocky IV, and which makes sense because it's drawing upon Rocky IV and Ivan Drago and that showdown and the death of Apollo Creed. But even though it was structurally following that to some degree, I do think it went well and beyond in terms of the character work. Ivan Drago is both demonized and then by the end of this movie entirely humanized. The fact that you could do that with a figure who was really like a hulking, non-human threat.
He was a metaphor.
He was a metaphor.
Walking boxing metaphor.
Yeah.
In Rocky IV.
And at a time when tensions between the United States and Russia and the United States, the entertainment depiction of Russia was very two-dimensional at the time.
Yes.
So the fact that they were able to give Dolph things to do, and that the threat in this movie, so we'll talk about Creed himself and his journey, but the threat in this movie in the form of Victor was they also, by this final climactic fight, I had empathy. I wanted Creed to win, but I had empathy for both of them. So that was what was phenomenal. I think they elevated, it's sort of like in Warrior. Did you see Warrior?
I have not seen Warrior. Everyone keeps telling me to see Warrior, but I have not seen it.
So when the fights are unrealistic in terms of that's really not how you would fight in the UFC. But that aside, the final climax emotionally between these two brothers is so resonant. And it's not quite that, but I do think that this captures a little bit of that where you are rooting for one side, but it's not blindly.
Yeah.
I thought that was very impressive. All of the characters had an arc. Creed himself had a very specific arc. And the movie sort of at the end, in a very overt way, says, now we're passing the mantle. It's about Creed. It's not so much about Rocky Balboa. Caveat to that. Where do you think it should or should not go from here?
No, I don't. I think this should be it. If I'm being honest, that's not to knock this movie at all. However, I think that what I liked about and what I had the most skepticism about with Creed coming in, the first film, was it's a very difficult line to toe in the sense of not making something seem just a watered down version of the Rocky movies, but also not making something that feels completely disconnected to this universe to a distracting degree. And I think Creed, the first film, nailed that perfectly. Just like, this is its own thing. This is its own story. Yes, we're bringing in Rocky Balboa, but it's not just hearkening back to the he has a new arc. Adonis Creed is a completely new character who has his own arc and story. This film, I think, took the strengths of that first film as far as the character work that they did. And to my eyes, they tied everybody up in this movie. Where they ultimately went, and a lot of those places surprised me, was a perfect resolution for those characters.
Yeah.
In the sense of, for Rocky, I really think this movie did a great job of taking Rocky through every iteration, through the original series of films, through Rocky Balboa, which I think is an underrated movie, but did a lot of really good character development for Rocky, through the last film to this film. I think they really have taken that character to some really strong places. I think that you've seen an evolution of Adonis through the first film to this film, where I like where they ended his character. I like where they have left him. There are places that you can go, but I don't think that they should. I think they've made two really good companion pieces that tell a complete story for all of the characters involved, which is very difficult to do. And I really do think that this movie, I think, had slightly diminishing returns from the last film. I think that any subsequent film to this one, and I'm sure people said this with Rocky 2, but I'll say it too, I think that this one would really have a diminishing return, because you would then be forcing motivation. You'd be forcing motivation for everyone involved, and I think that's where you run into trouble. So I don't think this franchise should continue, not because this movie isn't good. I enjoyed this movie, but because I really think they've done a great job of telling the stories of these characters.
I agree with you. I think they wrapped it up quite beautifully. And one of the things that does, I mean, I would agree with you in terms of, I think it's hard. I think sequels in general, it's always difficult for them not to have diminishing returns to some degree, because you are ready for the things that in the first one surprised and delighted you. Now you're ready for that. So what do you have to add that's new? And I think that they did develop Adonis's character and his the relation, not just the individual character work, but the relationship work in this movie is beautiful. There is a through line, obviously, about fathers and sons, and what that dynamic means, and the strains and the stress and the expectations of a son to live up to his father, or a father failing their son. That's the three father and son storylines. Tie that together, I think, very beautifully and thematically. But also, I think you raised a really good point, which is, I am always really impressed with a movie that understands the franchise it's in, and that hits on the elements of each iteration of that franchise, even when it's had a very rocky road. In a way, I actually didn't mean to do that. That's what's shocking. And kind of refines it and delivers it in a whole way that doesn't feel kind of gimmicky. It delivers it in a way that serves the story in total. I think that I think it hit on something with Adonis Creed in terms of legacy and what it means to be a child of someone that was so revered, and to an imposter syndrome, that as great as you are, and this is even if you don't have a legacy you're living up to, as great as you are at something, I think most people always feel insecure that they're faking it, that they're really not as excellent as others may find them to be, or as high a level as you can achieve. That's almost more terrifying, and that's where you can get into your head even more. When you are the underdog, you've got something to gain. When you're on top, you have everything to lose. I thought that was well played. And I will say, I loved seeing this on opening night with a full theater, because by the time we got to these fight sequences, the people around me acted as if it was a real fight. They did not have the cynicism of a critic to be like, I think I know where this will end. And the tension was so well played in those fights. And because I cared about both characters, I cared about the fight even more, and I was more invested. I really thought it was poetically ended and concluded, the fight, I mean. And it played beautifully into the themes of the movie. It gave a character a complete turn with one move that he makes, one decision that this key character, a supporting character in the movie, makes at the end of that fight, gives him a complete arc.
Yeah, I feel like I said, I enjoyed the movie. The one thing that I noticed was when you talk about with directors, like a lot of people say there's so many people working on a movie. What does a director bring to the table that, where does the line blur? And I think if you look at Creed versus Creed 2, you can see, I could tell the difference between the directorial style of Ryan Coogler and the directorial style of this film. And that's not to say this film was bad, but the first film had a pop to it, a zing, like a real just bam burst of energy that I missed from this film in a lot of ways, and that's not to denigrate this film, but it's really to complement what Ryan Coogler brings to the table as a director, because that first Creed movie, and I rewatched it the night before I saw this one a couple nights ago. I mean, it just has a momentum and a propulsion behind it that I missed a little bit in this film. But the boxing sequences were one where I felt like Ryan Coogler really reinvented the wheel in Creed in a lot of ways. This felt a little more close to what you've seen in a lot of other Rocky films, but it doesn't take away. And I agree, there is a communal aspect to seeing a Rocky film in a theater. It's like you're watching a fight.
Yeah. They were so invested.
Everyone's invested.
Every hit, it was behind me. There was a woman going, "Come on, Adonis, come on," as if she was really watching this fight. And it elevated my joy exponentially to be taken away with them, because honestly, I love sports films because they give me that satisfaction. But it's more fun to watch it with a group.
And it's a credit to the character work, because you don't really care about that unless the movie's done a good job selling its characters and their motivations. And you're right, Creed 2 sells the motivations for both fighters, which is something that the Rocky movies didn't always do.
I agree.
That this movie does do. For me, ultimately, Creed 2 is a really enjoyable film. And takes its characters to such great places that I have no desire to see more.
Yeah. I will say I agree with you about the propulsive feeling of Creed, and that speaks to Ryan and Coogler as a director we could break down for a number of days. But Adonis Creed himself has that quality. Yeah. He is energized. He is somebody who's thinking very fast. His brain is working very quickly. He has a propulsive feel. He wants to get in there, and that matches his style of fighting, where he wants to just jump in and do it. And it's interesting, and I thought very well done in this movie, that he has to refine his style in order to face the challenge that he's facing, and we go through that journey. And what I think this film did better than almost any Rocky film was give me a fight where, like we've said before, where both sides, they're fully human. And I could find myself wanting either one of them to win for different reasons, because it's heartbreaking for either one of them to lose. Yeah. And yet it's done in a way so that a loss is also a win for both for one particular character. I won't say who, but that I thought was a beautiful flourish. And Adonis as a character is more thoughtful in this film. He's going through a different sort of arc, so maybe that's why the film also feels a little more thoughtful.
Yeah, my one major criticism of the movie that really struck me as I was watching it and afterwards is you have two great actors also in the film, in Felicia Rashad and Tessa Thompson as Creed's mother and as his girlfriend slash fiance partner. Yes. I was waiting for both of them to really have a scene, because Creed is going through a lot of stuff in this movie. Yeah. And I felt like both of them kind of got short shrift, in the sense that this is something that impacts, or both of them, either in actuality or potentially in very, very serious ways. Yeah. And I don't really think the movie gave that aspect of it as much attention as it could have or should have, in the sense that this is a very consequential thing that is happening here in this film. And I was waiting for really the scene with both of them where they try to break it down to him, what this potentially is, to what the meaning of this could be. And it's kind of given lip service throughout the film, but then we move on and just kind of follow Adonis more and more. Yeah. That was the one aspect that I thought was missing from that film, is you have such strong characters and such strong actors playing those roles. Yeah. I do feel like the story was missing a very key component as to what the effect of what was going on in this movie has on them, both in reality and potentially. I really think that could have been explored more, and it wasn't. And that would be my big knock about the movie. It is very strong on character work, where I think it falls short in the character department.
I would agree with that 100%. The two characters that get short shrift, and they stand in as they're helping to move the story forward for him. They're helping to support the story for him, but they don't really get much of their own to do. A little bit, not much. And there's an arc that doesn't work. That's stated but not seen. We don't. They don't show. They tell, which is this idea of partnership and what does that actually mean in careers like that. And unfortunately, I agree that arc didn't work at all, where it could have been a beautiful layer of, are you acting in partnership even when you're pursuing your own goals, or are you not? And then there's a moment that should have paid off really well at the end. Emotionally, it works visually, but it doesn't pay off so well emotionally. I would agree with that. But overall, I think if you like Creed, and you like the Rocky franchise, that you will really enjoy this movie. I recommend it, and I agree with you, Dan. This is well enough.
Yeah.
Unless someone has a fantastic idea that really truly works, I think this ends it in a very, very clean, nice place.
Yeah, I enjoyed the film. I recommend it, and I'm going to be very upset if in 2 years we're sitting here talking about Creed 3 with a 3 in the middle where that middle E is.
So it's
I can see it in my head, the poster for Creed 3.
The 3.
Cur 3
Ed.
Please no.
Don't do it.
I really think we're in a good place here, and I like these movies, and I want to continue liking them, and I think perhaps this is a perfect place to stop.
You guys let us know what you think if you see it this weekend. Are you excited? Are you not? What worked? What didn't? And we will be back. There's more movies coming out. So many.
So many movies, but for now, we're going to take a little review break.
Yeah.
Because we've been reviewing a lot of films, but we'll be back soon.
Yeah, we will be back.
Everything hitting theaters. It's a flood. It's a flood of movies.
Aquaman, we got Bumblebee.
Oh, Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins is on the way.
Spider-Verse. Coming up soon. Mortal Engines. All of these big ones. And the Oscar movies too, Roth, which I'm excited to see a bunch of them. I'm going to try to catch a few of them that I haven't seen yet over the weekend. Should be fun.
We are looking forward to that, and we will see you soon.